Well, welcome guys. Welcome to Mr. 4K Coffee vlog number 14. Let's talk about the 8K resolution because a lot of people have been talking about this, especially now that we have 8K being sold on the market, and we're talking about obviously Samsung. Samsung is the only company right now that's rolling out 8K resolution. Let's talk about the 8K resolution. All right, the footage you're looking behind me, it is shot in 8K, but for the sake of this video, I had to downscale that 8K to fit the 4K video, which is 8.3 million pixels, and that's what you're watching right now. Okay, and let's talk about resolutions, guys. The very important part that I think I want everybody to understand, for those of you who don't understand much about how resolutions works, for those of you who don't understand how it works on the TV and how it fits on the TV and how you can appreciate that resolution on your TV. First and foremost, let's go to the past. Let's talk about 1080p. 1080p, when it first came out, was a major step from digital. Okay, it was the first major step for us to hit high resolution. Everything before that, it was 480p, okay, 520 or 580p, 480p. So everything was digital. The DVDs were digital, and sure, digital was a big step up from VHS, okay, which was even lower resolution. Finally, in 2007, we finally stepped into a high resolution, which was full HD, full HD, high resolution. And high resolution was really a major step up from what we had previously, and that's where we finally appreciate the detail that's possible on the television. And Blu-rays were a big hit because the Blu-rays were able to bring us that native 1080p resolution for us to appreciate on our screens, on our televisions. And the one thing that made HD TVs so popular is the fact that you were watching majority of stuff in a native source. You were watching it in a native 1080p. When you purchase a Blu-ray movie, you were watching it in a native 1080p. And if you were watching some programs that were running in a native 1080p, you were getting the native source of 1080p, and you were getting a true native source of HD 1080p. Okay, and that's what made HD TVs so unique and so great, because of the fact that you were taking the advantage of that native source. And the reason I'm mentioning this, the reason I'm mentioning a native source, because that's what this is all about, guys. We buy the televisions, we purchase the new latest and greatest to appreciate that native source. So with HD TVs, we took the full advantage of that native source with the Blu-rays, video games, some video games, and of course with a 3D HD, we took the advantage of that as well. And there was bunch of programs that were supporting the HD, like HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, Stars, Sky Networks. They all support full HD. They still do, and we were able to appreciate that on our full HD 1080p native televisions that have the resolution. Okay, remember, the native resolution is the key here. Alright, so in 2015 we stepped up from high resolution to UHD ultra, from high to ultra high definition televisions, meaning that now we're getting even more pixels than what we originally had on a HD televisions. So now we're stepping up to 8.3 million pixels. Okay, and that's a major step up That's a 4 times more higher than what we had with a high resolution. Now, there's an argument. Some people are going to say, I don't really see much of a difference between 1080p and the 4K UHD. Well, that's because you don't understand how it works. And I don't mean to be rude about this, but you have to have some understandings. You have to have some knowledge on how this process works in order for you to appreciate what your 4K television can do. Now, granted, when the 4K first came out, there wasn't that many native 4K sources that you can watch. Majority of stuff was upscaled. You were watching an upscaled videos, movies, because they did roll out into 2015. They did roll out Blu-ray players that have the upscaler, 4K upscaler, and that upscaler was upscaling externally to your television. Now, granted, your television will upscale that content no matter what with their chip that they have inside. But there was these other players that were also externally upscaling to try to give you a better upscale onto your 4K television. Now, very important to remember here, guys, the upscaling and scaling and using all these other methods to reach to that resolution is tricking. It's a trickery. Even this video is being upscaled. It's not a true native 4K. Like what you're watching right now, it's a compressed MP4 that's being upscaled to 4K. It's not a true native 4K. If this was a true native 4K, this video would take about, I don't know, like 20 gigabytes, maybe 30 gigabytes, if I was giving you a true native source for you to see on your television. So what you're watching right now, it's not even a native 4K. This aerial shot with the drone was shot with a native 4K resolution, but guess what? You're not seeing the native 4K. I'm tricking you. You're being tricked, even though even though it will say, when you click on the YouTube video, it will say, hey, it's a 4K video, but it's upscaled. Okay, and that's what you got here. And a lot of people don't seem to understand this important key point. To truly appreciate what your television can do, you have to feed that television a native source. Okay? If you're not feeding that television a native source, then you're not taking the full advantage of what that television can do. Now, granted, there's a bunch of movies out there, and I know I had to say this, but there's a bunch of movies out there from 2K intermediate to 4K, and they're not really a native. Listen, all those movies that you watch on your 4K UHD Blu-ray, they're not a native 4K source. Okay, let's just call it what it is. When you purchase that 4K UHD Blu-ray movie, you're not getting a native 4K source. There's maybe a handful of native 4K sources, movies that will support that. Like The Martian, you're definitely getting a really good native 4K source. The Revenant, you're definitely getting a good native 4K source. But all the other movies out there, they are upscaled. They're compressed. They're upscaled from 2K to 4K in order for you to get that 4K feel. Okay, to get that 4K, if you will, upscaling trickery. A lot of those movies are just being upscaled, but however, they're being upscaled with a great care. They're using a higher bit rate. They are also using a HDR to give us a much better contrast ratio on that movie, with colors and deep dark levels and white bright levels and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say, when you purchase your 4K UHD Blu-ray movie, yes, you are getting a far better deal than what originally you would get with a Blu-ray standalone. Okay? You got a much better codec that will encode a much higher bit rate. Okay? However, you are still not getting the native 4K source. All right? So that's the important part, and that's what I'm trying to come across here, so that people understand when you purchase, or if you're thinking about purchasing a 4K television this year or this holiday season, you have to remember a couple of things. You need to feed that television a native source. Okay? When you go to the Magnolia to see the demos, they're feeding you a native source that was shot specifically to take the advantage of that TV and they're feeding you a native source of what that television can do. Okay? But don't think that when you buy that TV, that every program, that everything that you watch on it is going to look just like that. It's not. It depends on the content that you're feeding it. And of course, it also depends on what type of TV it is, what it has behind it. Is it a quantum dots? Is it a OLED? Is it still, LCD, LED backlit? How many full array local dimmings, etc., etc., etc.? It depends on the panel, what type of panel it is. Okay, and it also depends on how you adjust the picture settings on that TV as well. There's so many things that you need to look into consideration when it comes to, taking the full advantage of your TV. So let's get back to the 8K. The reason I had to go back through history and talk about this, because I want you guys to understand that if you are not taking a full advantage of that native source, then you are not appreciating what that TV can do. You have to take advantage of that native source. Otherwise, you're not getting the best what your TV can offer. And this is where the 8K resolution comes in. We're talking now 33 million pixels. Think about that. From 8.3 million pixels, we're now jumping into 33 million pixels. Just let that sink in. Let that sink in. And just try to let that sink in for you to understand what kind of processing power it takes to move all these 33 million pixels and render, in a layman terms, to move 33 million people and fit them into a screen. Okay? Hypothetically speaking, what kind of processing power it takes to render every and each pixel, 33 million pixels, into 8K. Okay, let just that sink in, if you're having a difficult time understanding that. Okay? So, let's talk about the 8K. First and foremost, 33 million pixels, you are going to need a bigger canvas. What are we talking about a canvas? We're talking about, obviously, your screen. You can't put 33 million people inside a stadium that only supports 8,000 people. I mean, you could kind of try to put them one on top of each other, but that's what you're doing. You're squeezing them in. You're squeezing every and each pixel in, okay? That doesn't mean you're going to get the detail. That means you're squeezing everything in. And everything's going to look smaller and smaller and smaller and tiny and tiny. You won't even be able to read the damn letters, okay? Due to the fact that you got a really, really, really small canvas. You got to have a bigger canvas, a bigger TV to appreciate every and each pixel of 33 million pixels, okay? So if you're somebody, now this is number one, if you're thinking about buying an 8K television. Number one, the 65-inch, it ain't gonna cut it. I'm sorry, cousin. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But if you're gonna go out there, spend $4,000 buying a 65-inch 8K television, bringing it home, and then you do a YouTube video on it, I'm sorry, cousin. I'm sorry, sister. I'm sorry, brother. But you're not taking a full advantage of 33 million pixels. That's a fact. Now, you can go ahead and disagree all you want with me all day long, but that's a fact. You're not taking a full advantage, okay? All right, so there you have it. To truly appreciate what 33 million pixels can do, you gotta have a bigger canvas. You need at least 75-inch to start, like a 75-inch just to start. Like that's like entry level, just for you to start from 7 feet away with a 75-inch just to start to kind of get some idea. Oh, this is what it's all about a little bit. But to truly appreciate what 33 million pixels natively, if you're playing a native source, can do, you gotta have 83 or 88 inch. I would prefer 88 inch, but 83 will do it. 83 inch, I think you will definitely see the difference between looking at the 4K 65 and then a big giant tower of 83 inches. And I've seen this. I've been to Magnolia. I have watched it. I have looked into it. You clearly can tell the difference. Like, you can tell a difference. You can, like here, you're missing out some detail because this is a upscaled compressed 4K, so you're really not getting the full advantage of 8K here. If this was in a native 8K, 83 or 88 inch, not only would you see this ocean, but you would see what's underneath the ocean, even in a more, you would even see seashells lay down on the beach. You would see so much detail if you were running it on a big giant canvas. All right. So remember, guys, 4K television, 65 inch, it's good for 4K, for 8.3 million pixels. 65 inch is good. I would still recommend 75 inch for 4K. I think with a 75 inch, you're truly going to appreciate that 8.3 million pixels. And if you want to do a test, put 65 inch next to 75 inch and play that same native 4K source, and you're definitely going to see the difference with a 75 inch. 75 inch, it's perfect for native 4K. But 65 will get the job done, okay? Now, when it comes to 8K, you really you have to, like, your entry level basics has to be 75 inch. That's just the start. But recommended, it's 83 to 88. 83 is definitely going to give you some benefit of a doubt, where you're going to say, oh, I see now. I see a little bit more detail here than I see here on the 65. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. 88, you're definitely going to appreciate. 88 inch, you're definitely going to appreciate. Oh, I see more detail here on this island than what I did over here on a 65 or 75. Okay. So remember, the more pixels, the bigger the canvas. Okay. And this is why I laugh when I see people try to cramp all this high resolution on a phone. And I'm like, do you really need that high resolution on the phone? Come on. Really? 6.5 inches, it's still not enough. It's small. It's still small if you want to cramp up that high resolution of pixels. Remember, you're putting a high resolution into something that's small. You're cramping up everything inside. Even with 1080p, honestly, it's all you need. I'm going to be honest with you. 1080p, it's all you need on the phone. Even 1440p, it's a little bit of overkill. 1080p, it's all you need on a phone, on a small phone. And you're going to be fine. Okay? Well, when I see people talk about these high resolution, these gigantic pixels, and then I laugh when I see people talk about, I'm watching a 4K. I'm watching a 4K on my phone. No, you're not watching a 4K. You're watching a QHD. You're watching a 1440p. And even that 1440p, it's overkill for a phone because you got a small canvas. Remember, guys, this is just not me blowing the smoke out of my ass. This is a fact. Ask any technician who is, any manufacturer of television, anybody who's a professional, who's doing this for a living, and they're going to tell you the same thing. If you truly want to appreciate the detail of what that resolution can do, you gotta have a bigger screen. This is why we go to the cinema. This is why we go to the IMAX cinema. Why? Because we need a bigger screen to appreciate that IMAX film. When I went to see The Dark Knight in 2008, when I went to see it in the IMAX, I was blown away. Seeing that performance of Joker, and Christian Bale, the Batman, I was blown away. The stuff that I was able to see, I felt like I was there because I had a giant canvas with 75mm camera that I can appreciate that resolution. Okay, you gotta have a bigger canvas to appreciate a higher resolution. Okay, and I have to laugh, quite honestly, when I see the 8K monitors. I was like, what are these idiots talking about? 27 inch, when I see a company trying to sell me a 27-inch 8K monitor, I want to puke my guts out. I want to puke my guts out. Like, how dare you? Like, you got to be really dumb and uninformed. I mean, I'm sorry about this, that I have to say it. I'm sorry. You really got to be dumb and uninformed to buy something like a 8K monitor that's a 27-inch. Are you kidding me, man? Are you kidding me? You're gonna cramp up 33 million pixels into 27-inch? Are you kidding me? Guys, I hope that this I hope that I didn't, offend anybody. I hope that I didn't hurt anyone's feelings. I'm just trying to be honest. I'm just trying to give you the facts. Okay? This is not me trying to act as if I know this or I know that or I'm this or I'm that. Okay, this is about me letting you know the facts. Okay? If you buy that 65-inch QLED 8K television, I'm sorry, but you're not taking a full advantage of 8K. Okay? To truly take the advantage of 8K, you got to bump up from 75 to 83, and 83 should be a standard. Like 83 should be it for you to truly appreciate what the 8K resolution can do. Now 88 inch is like you're in heaven. With 88 inch, you're definitely enjoying that 33 million pixels. Okay, so I hope that this video clarifies that. Okay, and remember, upscaling, it's not the same as a native source. Upscaling, it's a trick. I'm tricking you that I'm squeezing my 8.3 into 8K. It's a trickery. Checkerboarding, it's a trickery. This is all tricks. You're not taking advantage. So if you buy a PlayStation 5 and you're playing 8K checkerboarding, cousin, you're not playing 8K. You're not playing 8K. You're playing fake 8K. Let me repeat this one more time. If you go in buying a PlayStation 5 next year or Xbox Scarlet next year, and they show you, oh, guess what? We got the re-release of Spider-Man on PlayStation 5, and the Spider-Man's gonna run in 8K. No, it will not run in 8K. It will be checkerboard. It's gonna be upscaled. It's gonna be fake 8K. It's not gonna be a real 8K. Native 8K is where you need to look for. Every resolution needs to be native. From 1080p to 4K, from 1080p, 2160p, and of course you need, for 33 million pixels, you need a native source as well. Everything needs its native source. So if you're not getting a native source, just like right now, I'm tricking you. You're not watching in 4K. You're watching in a fake upscaled 4K. This is not a native 4K. Okay? Just remember that. Native resolution is two things you need. You need a native source. You need a native source. And then you need a appropriate size of a television to appreciate that native source resolution. So two things before I end this video. You need a native source that supports that resolution natively. Second, you need appropriate screen size that truly takes the advantage of that resolution. There you have it, guys. I'm just trying, I know this video is kind of long, but I'm just trying to give you my honest facts. These are just facts. This is not me blowing smoke out of my ass. This is just a fact. Okay? These are the facts. So, there you have it. Alright, guys. Well, have a good one, though. Take care.